All right. Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Hi. How's it going?
how are you?
I'm good. Who is Abby Richards?
So that's my fiance. And for some reason, it logged me in under her Zoom when I pressed the link, so I'm rolling with it.
Awesome. What's your name?
Connor.
Hi, Connor. I'm Emily. It's nice to meet
Hey
you.
Emily, how are you? I'm with Jeff at Spice Trade. I'm helping him out with some social media stuff.
Welcome. Well, you are here right in time because I just cracked one of these.
All
Um,
right. Oh, I have a
yeah,
sample downstairs. I
Jeff
didn't.
dropped it off for me when he was on his lake life
Nice.
trip last week. So I
Yeah,
thought it
yeah.
would be an appropriate breakfast beer for me
Oh,
to crack during today's
got the
conversation
berry
at
flavor
10
in it, and
a.m. in Colorado.
yep, it's got that nice berry breakfast flavor in it. It's perfect.
That's awesome. Well, it's nice to meet you. Hi, Ryan. Hi, Dion. KB, I'm meeting you for the first time. What is up? Oh, no, I'm not. I'm just seeing you on the Zoom for the first time. What's up, girl? Nice to see you. Andrew, I'm meeting you for the first time, and Shelby and Catherine, and Justin too, and Brianna and Stacy. So like tons of new faces. Hey everyone, welcome. I'm gonna give
Hello, thank you.
yeah, thanks for being here. I'm going to give people a few more minutes to filter in. But in the meantime, if anybody has a beverage that they are enjoying that they would like to tell us about, by all means. Dion, are you drinking anything over there?
Well, I wasn't just yet. It's like right there. So I'm gonna go get it. Of course, I have them like queued up, like I'm ready. But yeah, I have a. What's up, man? How's everyone doing? I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces. This is great. Yeah, I think I'm between the tangerine cream or the East Coast transplant from New Image. Where do I start? But yeah, so.
I was
But,
in that same, like, a little bit cloudy, kind of juicy, kind of fruity mode. And we
perfect.
also hosted this workshop at Spice Trades Event Center in Denver last year when we did it for the first time. So I thought it would be a nice homage to them as our OG hosts to crack one of
Uh,
their beers today. Awesome.
Speaking of which, I'm gonna go grab one. I'll be right
Do it
back.
up. That's a great
Right.
reminder for everyone. If you need a beverage, maybe a coffee, maybe a kombucha, it doesn't have to be alcoholic, just whatever you got. It's a good time to get your materials downloaded or up on your screen or browser if you don't have them already. I put a link in our chat to all of our materials for today with the password. So if by chance you didn't find that in your email yet or it went to spam, I'm so sorry. Apparently, after 8 years in business, when you have beer in your title, sometimes it goes to spam folder. So, but if you're just not getting it, like get logged in, get settled, welcome, beverage time. Ryan, what are you having over there?
Well, I'm having a smoothie,
Nice. Me too.
and I'm having a chai tea, and I'm
Nice.
also having some water. A
Doing
little bit
great.
of
I'm
everything.
also having my green smoothie today.
Nice. Yeah.
Whilst drinking this little beer that I have poured for myself. I'll probably pour some for
Perfect.
my office mates later.
Yeah. Nice.
Wonderful. Well, I've got 17 of you in here now, and I'm going to get rolling with things because I imagine that some of our speakers and then some of our other folks who are joining us are going to be in and out. And then we're also encouraging people, like maybe you can't make the whole meeting today, but we're really encouraging you to download this content and use it later. We're recording this chat, so people will be in and out. I'm seeing a question. Sorry, Whitney. I'm going to send that link one more time, and then I'll get started. And welcome, Whitney. Glad to see you in here. I'm excited about what City Star is up to right now. You guys have so many cool things. Hi. Um, well, welcome, you guys. My name is Emily, and I am the founder of Radcraft. I I'll tell you a little bit about the company because we have so many new faces today. We're a marketing company and we're committed to serving the communications needs of breweries, distilleries, and malting companies. I'm very passionate about the barley community. Basically, my life revolves around it. And I've dedicated my career to Radcraft's mission, which is to elevate the quality and credibility of craft beer media. If you had told me 8 years ago when I started the company that social media would be one of our most talked about topics, I would not have been surprised at all. It's so ever evolving and changing all the time. However, I wouldn't have expected that we'd be having the kinds of communications that we are around social media. This workshop, as an example, so many craft breweries, distilleries, and malting companies that we work with have questions about social and how to manage it. And then also on behalf of a lot of the media relations efforts that we do, we work with tons of influencers and people who are managing social media accounts of publications and beyond. And I was never expecting that I'd be hosting a Zoom chat like this, but here we are. The purpose of this workshop is to give all of you craft marketing folks, many of whom have other roles at your company. Maybe you're a brewer or you're a bartender or whatever else, you fill in the blank. And we wanted to help streamline your efforts. Like I said, by far the number one topic we get asked about, and hence the formulation of this workshop. To those of you who participated last year, welcome back, and thank you for participating again. I really do wish that in some ways we could be back at the Yak and Yeti Event Center or all in person somewhere. However, I will also say that I recognize just how much more feasible and inexpensive it is for all of you to join us in this format. And I'm really proud to say that we have participants today coming from more than 10 states all around the country. That's pretty badass. So welcome, thanks for being here. And let's get started. Conversation, questions, all manner of communication is encouraged today. And that's why we're not using the webinar format, which I realize comes with its limitations. And then I'll also give the disclaimer that I'm calling from the middle of the mountains. So I'm sorry if there's a little bit of a hiccup, bear with me. But I think this format specifically is so much more fostering of conversation, and that's our goal today. And so to encourage good seamless communication, and also to give our speakers the love, please mute yourself if you're not speaking. And then if you want to put any comments or questions in our chat, please feel free. You're welcome to share with the group, just message me directly, whatever else. Like I said, I'm Emily. I am your producer, MC, and janitor today. And I hope that I'll include everyone's voice. If I don't, please follow up with me later. Let's see here. So did everybody get the link to today's information in some way, shape, or form and get access to it?
Is there a password for it? Mine has like
Yes, I'll put it in here. It's capital CSM 2020, like Craft Social Media 2020. All right, I'm gonna screen share for a minute so I can kind of deep dive into it with you guys and just give you a quick tutorial. It helps when you pull it up. Hold tight, people. So let's see here. Welcome to your little portal for today. Can you see me? Or it? Great. So yeah, download this, use it in future, share it with your colleagues, share it with your friends. Our only ask on this content is that if you'd like to repurpose it or reshare it, you just check with me first. That's why it's password protected, but we're going to keep this live into the future. And the encouragement here really is use this stuff in the future. We've packed as much relevant information as we can into these 2 hours. And if you digest all of this content, suggested expanded content, it will take you up to 5 hours. So this is here for you in future. You're all here on the Zoom, check, check. If you click into our digital agenda, you'll see what we have on the books for today. And hey, we're already running late, but that's fine. Social housekeeping is kind of a quick topic and no problems there, but everything is linked out if you stay in this portal. I will note that tech in the age of coronavirus is coming at you before social media housekeeping. But after we put this page together, we realized that to change it would be a dumpster fire. So we just kept it as is. And I think it's self-explanatory enough. So again, questions, throw them at me if you've got them. And that is the deal on this portal. And all of these clickable links are triple checked by me. But again, if you're having any issues or any technical difficulties of any kind, please give us a shout. Let's see here. I have a few more logistical details for you. I guess this is the fun side of things. In your portal, you can click out to the scavenger hunt checklist. I'll screen share one more time because we've got a pretty cool prize for you guys today. So as to encourage you to keep posting, to use the craft social media hashtag, and to really just kind of like get into it with your social media and the tips that we're suggesting here today. We have created a scavenger hunt, and if you complete it by the 29th of July, which is Monday at midnight, you have a chance to win a light box to create new product shots for your brand on us from The Flashery. The Flashery is a kick-ass Belgium-based company, and they love craft beer, so we love them. And if you complete this scavenger hunt and post about it on social with all of the appropriate tags, you are eligible to win that light box on us shipped to you. I clicked out to our scavenger hunt social media checklist. And so this is everything that you need to do to be eligible to win that light box. And it's also a really fun way to follow along with all of the content that we've put together for you today. So keep this baby in mind, especially if you're a social media pro and you are like Emily and Radcraft. I've done this 1,000 times. Why are you suggesting this to me today? Take that time to do your scavenger hunt, post about us on social, etc. So yeah, those are my logistical things. I am referring to my notes real quick before I move on too far. And I guess I'll just ask you guys if you have any questions about what we've got going on right now. Yes, June 29th. Thank you, Jesse. That's what I meant. I meant on Monday. Finish your scavenger hunt by Monday and you'll be eligible. Thanks, girl. And good to see you / meet you for the first time ever. We email all the time and do social media blasts, but it's great to see your face. Questions? All right. Well, I will run through our talking points on social media housekeeping. And again, this is one of those things that I think we've got some super pros in the house. And so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the first order of business today is indeed social media housekeeping. And we have put together a little checklist, another checklist for just some basics that you can do to really step up your social media game in a short period of time. And it's a good just kind of like starter checklist if you have not otherwise been doing social media, and or if you just want a nice refresher if to see if you're doing all the things. So in the portal, if you click out to the deck, quick and dirty tips for social media or for cleaning up your brewery social media channels. Apologies to any distillers, maltsters, or other affiliates in the house. This is a brewery specific deck, but I do think it applies. Are you guys able to click out to that? Would you like me to screen share? I'll screen share, why not? Quick and dirty tips with a checklist to go with it on your portal. Who here has a verified page? If you run a social media page, do you verify it? Cool, I'm glad to see some hands. It's a really important thing to do if you haven't done it already. It legitimizes that social media presence. It basically shows the world that you and or your brand are run by humans, and that helps with algorithms specifically. I also think that it really helps in those in searches for your brand, or in just searches in general. So optimize by verifying your page, and you can learn how to do it just by clicking here. We have some really nitty gritty specific on what kinds of copy to include on what social media channels and when, including things like best dimensions for photos across different channels, best times to post, etc., etc. So use that checklist and make sure that when you're putting up an Instagram post, for example, it has the right dimensions in comparison to a Twitter post. And I know that sounds silly, but that helps not just readability and your pages to look good, but it also helps with algorithm engagement and just performance in general. So check out that checklist. Again, I apologize for the redundancy, but it's all in there. And let's see here. Information about your brand, super important. I think categorization of what your brand is on social, if you're a brewery, a distillery, a maltster, maybe you're a brew pub and you serve food, maybe you're a marketing company specific to craft breweries and you want to get that out there. Be as explicit as possible on identifying who you are across your social media channels, whether that's your Facebook about page, your short Twitter bio, or your Instagram information or beyond. And that stuff is really important. Keep it consistent, keep it on brand, use the same logo across the board, and generally the same information to keep your channels cohesive. And try to integrate, as the next point says, as much on your various social media pages as you can, like your tap list or your menu. There's a suggestion for a link shortener on here. That's a nice way to clean up your social media channels if you are otherwise utilizing really long links. That just helps, again, with readability. That makes algorithms happy, and it's a good way to go. We have some additional resources here in this deck. And if you go through this deck, check off your scavenger hunt item on social media housekeeping and tag all your friends to do the same. You'll be one step closer to that light box. Does anybody have any questions about these checklists or these resources before I move on to talking about technology?
Hey, Emily, I just have a question.
Yeah, hi, Stacy.
Hi, I'm in Florida, and unfortunately, we just got word that our governor's shutting down alcohol sales again. So I kind of have a few other things to do. But you said this was going to be online. I can watch it later.
Download. So same link. We're going to put this video of all the content up, and all of this will be available to you. Same link, same password. Email me if you have any questions. And that
awesome.
Goes for
Thank
everybody.
you. Sorry I can't join live, but nice to meet everybody.
Stacy, what brewery are you calling from?
It's We're Fishware Brewing Company in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm
really sorry to hear that news. No fun.
We'll see. We don't really know. It's up in the air, so it's just, crazy times. But I was excited to join this. I'll definitely watch it a little bit later.
Great.
Thanks.
Well, reach out if you have any questions. Thanks for being here.
Will do. Thank you.
Hi, Alyssa. Welcome. So yeah, that goes for everybody. And there are tons of people actually who have signed up. I'd say only about a third of the participants who actually registered are here on the Zoom. And that's totally cool. The point is that this is a resource that keeps on giving and stays usable for you. All right. Any questions about that social media housekeeping checklist before I move forward? Sweet. Well, yes, quick and dirty tips. It will take you 20 minutes to do all those things, and high fives if you've already done them. I will move on to talking technology. And this is such an interesting and touchy topic, you guys. When we first started talking about this new era of communicating digitally and doing more with less people, it felt like technology was really at the forefront of a lot of those conversations. And with these leaner sales and marketing teams and greater needs for all sorts of communication, including virtual communication, it seems like lots of us have been leaning on technology to get the job done. But when polled, a variety of some of you who are on this call, some of you who are not and will listen, and then just some of our other industry friends really had definitions varying across the board of what technology was and how it could serve a craft brewery, a distillery, or just a small barley business like yours. And I wanted to run through a couple of the suggestions that had been pitched by a variety of our colleagues, but I also wanted to chat with you guys today on what kinds of communication technology you are using. And I think that we would like to help create more resources around this topic. So if you have anything good to share, I'm looking for your input on it in just a couple of minutes. Photo equipment was one of the biggest pieces of technology that people mentioned of things that they need right now. Hence our fun flashery giveaway today. We're also going to hook everybody who participates in this program up with a discount code to the flashery so that they can buy their own photo equipment with a little discount on us. And I think things like all kinds of video and photo amplifiers and supplies and lenses and lighting equipment and beyond have really served breweries and distilleries and maltsters right now, not only to showcase their projects, but to just get creative in general about their content. A lot of people are home more or in offices by themselves. They have less manpower and or can't get together and socialize for a photo shoot, for example. And so those pieces or those bits of photo equipment are coming in really handy for them as they have to get clever with creating new content. To that point, photo editing tools are a big part of communication technology that I'm hearing my colleagues using a lot of right now. Canva is one tool that I won't get into too deeply because Ryan and I are going to talk about that a little bit later. But the Adobe Suite and any other kind of photo editing software that you're working with, I think certainly applies to this conversation, though it is a little bit abstract when we think about tech. We've been hearing from people that apps are saving their lives right now. I think apps like Tap Hunter / Evergreen are really valuable for making the public know about your tap list or your changes in offerings and quickly. Untapped is another one of those tap listing softwares that are really helpful. There's so much social media capability out there where you can connect an app to whatever the social program is that you want to utilize in conjunction. And without boring you with a long list, I'll recommend you to the linked out article that we put together on communication tech for beer marketers in that portal that you have. Scheduling and automation tools is another piece of tech that is really valuable for lots of brands right now. Who here utilizes any kind of scheduler for their social media, like Hootsuite, Sprout Social, yeah, exactly. So tons of people are using these things, and I think they're using them that much more. Yes, the argument goes that when you schedule things out, you don't always make the algorithm as happy, but ultimately you're trying to run a beer or a barley business, not a marketing company. So like, get the word out however you can and make your life happen. So if anybody has any suggestions for automation, equipment of any kind, apps, any kind of software, like tech of all kinds, I'd love to hear from you. And we have a couple of minutes right now if anybody wants to jump in. And I also am open to links and suggestions in the comments feed if you want to partake there. Ryan,
I recently started using Later instead of Hootsuite. I was getting kind of frustrated with Hootsuite because you can't really customize each post depending on the platform. So I started using Later, and that one makes it a lot easier because once you hit submit on your schedule, it splits it out per each platform. So for example, you can add hashtags on Instagram or remove the hashtags for Facebook.
I love that. That's huge.
So I like that one.
Yeah, a lot of those automation tools don't always allow you to customize for the platform. And then you end up with these like weird linkage and
Yeah.
conversion issues. So that's a great tip. I just found it and I linked out to it if you guys want to check that out.
Yeah, kind of touching on what you said, Emily, like I do feel like there's pros and cons to it. Having done social media for other companies, I've definitely used those applications, but I feel like for Food Report specifically, because I want it to be so timely and because current events really do lead, like, I mean, I might just wake up one day and want to write something, and that's, you know, how it works. I mean, I think that that's also valuable too. So I think it just depends on what you're trying to bring to the table, because on a social media panel with Pink Boots too, I actually had one of the marketing ladies from St. Arnold's, and she kind of even said how pertinent it was to tie in current events and how that just really created a lot of content for them. So it just depends on, I guess, how you want to approach it.
I agree. And do you find yourself as a result scheduling time in to make those posts happen for yourself so that you can do it in the live time?
Totally. I mean, I almost look at it as like some people wake up and journal. Like I'll wake up and be like, what's going on in the world? Like, and what kind of food stuff or beer stuff have I been doing lately? So it just feels a little bit more organic to me that way. But I think it is a huge time saver though when you have things scheduled. I mean, everyone has lives and, you know, additional responsibilities. So I understand both sides of that.
Yeah, Dion, I love that point because it expands the conversation to scheduling tools of all kinds. I mean, to have a scheduling tool or app is not necessarily to be posting on social media in advance and letting it go live. It might just be to get a little ding on your phone when you need to be doing that social media stuff, or a scheduling app so that you can manage the rest of your day in accordance with the time that you've decided to dedicate to this social media crafting that you're doing at work or for your brand in general. So that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a piece of technology that they've been using a lot post-COVID to communicate with their team or otherwise to share?
I could drop one in.
Yeah, please.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, you mentioned Canva. I'm actually not going to get too deep into that at all in my presentation, but I just saw there's a platform called Creative Market, and they have a lot of fonts and stock graphics. And I just saw they have a entire section of templates for Canva. If anyone's not familiar, Canva is just like kind of an online platform that's like a design tool. It's kind of like a simplified, or not simplified, it's just a different version kind of Photoshop. And so you can get some really nice templates to use, and that way, you're going to be using a really great design to start with. And then lastly, if anyone has access to the Adobe suite, this is a little bit more advanced, but not too crazy. There's a software that Adobe released called Adobe Dimension. And Dimension is a 3D rendering program, but it's super dumbed down to make it really easy. And you can essentially adjust lighting. You can create photography basically with it. You can they have built-in can, so you can just take a JPEG of your label and slap it on a can, and you can create a scene. You can go anywhere and get like stock photography backgrounds. So if you have like a coffee stout or something, you can find an image of coffee, and you can drop the can into that scene. And you can change the position of the camera. You can change the lights. You can change everything. You can create dramatic shadows. So from your desk, you don't even have to have like a photography studio. You can literally create just amazing renderings that are super realistic. The can inside of the scene, it grabs the background you put in and it wraps it slightly around the can, so it's aware of the background you put in. So the reflections it's really super realistic. So if you have access to Adobe Dimension has been huge. I've been just like cranking out all these like awesome, design images and like photography type images to put out on social. So
love it. Can you guys tell why I wanted Ryan to talk with you today? KB, what is Monday? She popped into the comments, and I don't use Monday. Does anybody else here use Monday?
I have used it, but not for the brewery.
I was just curious. I've been looking into it. It's basically a way to delegate tasks to your team. And it's just a user-friendly online platform, not necessarily for publishing social media, but just a way to keep track of what needs to get done across the entire board. I know that Wiley Roots Brewing uses it, and they showed me one day like how in depth they can get with this Monday application, and it's incredible. It seems to keep them really organized, which is cool.
I love it. Thank you
It's
for that
it's
tip.
a great project management tool. I haven't used it at the brewery because I can't get all those people to be that organized. It would be cool if they would, but if you can get your team buy-in on it, I think it will really help.
Yeah, any kinds of internal team communication have come up a lot. Slack, Trello, Asana, I mean, Basecamp, you name it. So many teams are starting to rely really heavily on those. And without further ado, before I introduce our next panel, I'll say that if you want to talk shop on any of those internal communication technologies or just keep sharing in the comments, please keep it up, and we'll follow up with everyone in all topics. Basecamp better than Monday, I'm seeing. Yeah, Slack and Trello. I totally used Slack at Radcraft. We used to use Basecamp, but we're a little bit more excited about Trello and Asana these days, mostly because they're free. But yeah, that's lots of good suggestions. So keep popping in there and suggesting. And I am going to transition into our first panel of the day, which I've been super excited about because it's a bit of a repeat from last year's workshop. A couple of same faces and one new face, and its topic, or I should say content matter, that I think matters to so many small craft brands right now. And that topic is influencers. A lot of times when we talk about influencers, it's like, what do you even mean? Like, what is an influencer? And I think sometimes that word can have a little bit of a negative stigma too, because people associate an influencer with like a naked lady with a beer in between her cleavage, which is certainly not what we're all about. I am really proud and impressed to present the three ladies that are on this panel today, because they aren't just really authentic and passionate members of this community, but they are true storytellers that are passing the word along to others and helping a lot of people gain access to craft beer and barley that wouldn't otherwise get it. So I'm really excited to present this influencer panel today. And if you had any kind of a negative stigma when I said that word influencer, just squash it and let's all move forward and talk real time about this topic. So ladies, I'm gonna let you introduce yourselves and share your handles. And I want to pick on Alyssa first, because Alyssa just went on a trip for her anniversary and made like this major 100-mile detour to come and see me and have brunch in Durango. So I'm gonna pick on her and say thanks again for that and let her go first. Hi, friend.
Of course, it's always great to see you, Emily.
It was
Had to
awesome.
make it out to Durango.
I needed it. It was like human contact. It was awesome.
My name is Alyssa Thorpe. I am, first and foremost, the head brewer at Jagged Mountain Craft Brewery in Denver, Colorado. But I also run a popular Instagram under the name of Southern Beer Girl. I think I've had it for about 3.5 years. I pretty much started it right when I started professionally brewing. So I've had, it's very personal. It's not necessarily business driven, although I do represent some companies that I like to work with. But yeah, it's just very geared towards brewing, the beer industry. I try to, do women power, women in brewing, try to, represent diversity in the industry and encourage diversity in the industry, while just showing people my life at the same time. So, yeah.
It's a great feed. Follow it if you don't already. It's part of your scavenger hunt. Dion, you're up, lady.
Hey y'all, I'm Dion Roberts. I'm the editor of Rocky Mountain Food Report, And yeah, I actually met Alyssa last year. We were on the panel together. And so, hey, Alyssa, what's up, girl? But yeah, so Rocky Mountain Food Report, we are actually turning 5 this fall, which is really hard for me to wrap my head around. We are a craft food and beverage news site. The social media side of it has really exploded, I feel like, in the last couple years. And just like Emily said, I mean, I would have always thought it was a piece of what I did, but I never would have thought it was such a pivotal kind of component of getting news out. And even at this point, I think it's a way that I can more quickly produce news. And like I said, things are changing daily. I mean, we've had so many just cultural changes in our world. I mean, just it's been so pivotal, and just being able to share things that come across my desk, and by desk I mean my kitchen table. So it's really nice. I mean, to be able to just connect with the craft food and beverage scene and be able to share that information with followers, whether it's pictures or a story or yeah. I mean, just I think being authentic to what people are eating and drinking and what's going on in the world around us is really important.
Awesome. Welcome, Dion. And Mandy, my friend, you're up next. And then when you introduce yourself, I'll have you transition to the next question, which is tell us how you built your following. And then I'll have our other 2 gals just kind of keep rolling with it. Welcome, friend.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. My first time.
Yeah,
I'm an advanced Cicerone and food journalist, getting more into beer journalist. And I also run the Instagram handle Beers with Mandy, and my website, beerswithmandy.com. I really focus on beer history and beer travel. I want people to get a little bit outside of their hazy IPAs and pastry stouts with what I post. So that's one of my goals. And it'll be 2 years actually next week that I started running it. So exciting anniversary coming up. And then how I started growing, I think, was just reaching out to people who were in the space when I first started my Instagram, kind of commenting, getting to know other people in the space, and then really forming my own voice, like I said, deciding what I wanted to focus on, what I wanted to post about. And then I got really into hashtags at the beginning, which people kind of get embarrassed about, but I think it's really helpful to grow your account from the very beginning. And then since then, I've really been trying to be thoughtful about what I post and make it things that people can share. And it's just been growing since then.
fantastic. Yeah, Mandy's handle is at Beers with Mandy. We've got at Southern Beer Girl and then at Rocky Food Report. So give these gals a follow. Alyssa, how did you build your following of Southern Beer Girl? You're muted, lady.
For some reason, I have to reset my internet. I'm sorry. For some reason, it is not. I can't hear anybody for some reason.
Oh, no worries. Do you want to reset and come back?
Be right back.
Yeah, she'll be back. Dion, do you want to go while we wait for Alyssa to come back? I'll message her.
All right, I'm on. Okay, got it. Yeah, I'm ready. So yeah, as far as following, I feel like for me, maybe this is even a follow-up question, but engagement is really important. I feel like the more authentic and genuine I've been and being able to share kind of part of who I am, I actually didn't even share a face with my brand until pretty recently. It's been within a year. So I think as far as just building a following, I was very focused on just the journalistic portion of what I did. And then I think as I got more comfortable, I just said, like, what the hell? Like, why not? You know, and I think that does really resonate with people where they're like, oh, it's a person. Like, and I even just pretty recently put up a post that said, like, there's a living, breathing woman behind what I do. And I guess for some reason, I kind of liked being in the shadows a little bit. But I think it does have an appeal for readers and followers to be able to put a face to a name and kind of say, like, hey, like, I saw you out there, like, eating that taco or whatever, you know? So I think that is very helpful in just kind of building a following and creating a voice it's just genuinely you.
Completely agree. Alyssa, welcome back. Did that work?
So that.
I can hear you.
Good. I could hear myself. I just couldn't hear anybody else. So I'm at the brewery, so the internet can sometimes be a little weird, but we're good now. Good.
No worries. Well, tell us how you built your following, my friend.
Of course, yeah. So when I started posting about my brewing, initially I was doing home brewing, and I was posting on my personal Instagram account, and I realized that I started getting a lot of likes on those particular photos. So I just kind of decided to start my own thing and do Southern Beer Girl and make it completely separate from my personal page. And really, I just started following breweries that I admired, other people within the same realm, a lot of home brewers, a lot of notable people in the beer industry or related to that. I started commenting on a lot of those posts that these people would do, and just really interacting, I think, is super important, especially when you're starting out. Commenting, sharing posts. Just trying to be really interactive with content that is similar to your own. And somehow it just blew up from there. I did get featured in a Men's Health article, which really kind of set my numbers really high after that whole thing. I think it was something like 10 beer Instagram influencers to follow. And overnight, I kind of woke up and had an extra 10,000 followers. So that really, really contributed to where I'm at today, but also just putting a lot of work in it too.
Yeah. The publicist in me is doing the happy dance, because it's so true that earned media is such a powerful force in gaining your following, because it's not just you telling the world, hey, we're great. And it's not just your customers or your buddies telling the world, hey, we're great. It's a qualified, credible source saying, hey, they're great. That's fantastic, Alyssa and Dion, and Mandy. And if you guys have questions for these gals about how to build your Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and otherwise social media following in general, they have answered them and then some in the incredible video that is linked out on your portal for this segment. It's on YouTube, and we encourage you to share it with all your friends. It's almost 10 minutes long, but it doesn't feel like it at all. It's so easy to watch and listen to. And these gals just lay it down on how to gain new followers and how to do so in an authentic way. And I highly encourage watching it. It's also part of your scavenger hunt, so take a peek at that. And then today, instead of talking about how to gain new followers, because I know that's a burning question that we get all the time when we're working with our partners, I thought we could talk a little bit more about the stories involved in what you all do. And I have a question for all three of you, and I'll pick on Mandy first, because she is in Brooklyn. And I know she's experiencing the pandemic very differently than I am in the middle of the mountains. And so I'm curious to know what about your social media strategy, and specifically how you're interacting with breweries and distilleries and maltsters has changed since coronavirus hit.
Yeah, I mean, New York has definitely been on lockdown. And I think, a lot, like I said, a lot of my content was about travel pre-coronavirus, and the first thing I noticed was my website traffic just absolutely plummet. So figuring out how to tell stories about that from your home, like how can you experience things that are like you're traveling. Like I did a couple posts about just craft beer in Italy, even though we can't go there right now. Let's try sample some of them and talk about which ones are great and what Italian craft beer styles are. And I think another thing that was important, from the pandemic and all of the recent events, has just been changing my tone. My tone is usually very upbeat and we're out and traveling. And I think understanding your audience is mentally exhausted from a lot of things and just their life changing. And how I can support that in the stories that I'm telling that just feel refreshing and not maybe so energetic and in your face, and a little bit more what can we all do to relax? What can we do to take a break a little bit? How can we feel refreshed and not like you're not being forced to learn something or anything like that? I've definitely been thinking about my tone more since all of this started because we're tired in New York.
I don't blame you. Yeah. Well, thank you again for giving us a little bit of your time. What are you drinking? What are you drinking over there? What do we got?
It's iced coffee.
Oh, nice.
With a lot of
I'm like, am I the only one drinking beer right now? I wanted to give Spice Trade the love. But really, thank you for saying that. I think considering, oh, nice. Abby over there has got some Spice Trade as well going on. But yeah, you know, I think that conversation about where your audience is at always, and especially now, is so important. Alyssa and Dion, what's happening for you post-pandemic in your shifting strategies?
I guess I'll go first. Since my Instagram is very personal, I think it's been really interesting to see how my followers react to my posts, just because I got furloughed for 2 months from brewing. And obviously my whole Instagram is based around that, and just sharing like my feelings over that, my feelings over everyone in the brewing industry getting furloughed, basically. Just seeing that amount of support come out of my followers was incredible. But I mean, I've said this so many times, but just being super authentic is really important to me, and especially in Southern Beer Girl. I don't ever want to make it feel like I'm doing anything fake or trying to push something on somebody. And so, you know, having my followers go along the journey with me of being furloughed, going back to work every once in a while. And then at the same time, I really tried to support the breweries around me who were hurting. You know, I would try to go every single week and pick up a couple of crowlers from one of my favorite breweries and try to push that on social media and, you know, talk about the new beers that they were coming out with. And just like really trying to support everyone, even though I was also one of the people who was out of luck in that situation. But really, I don't know if my tone or anything has changed. I think I think I'm diving a little bit more into supporting of other people, especially in these weird times with like Black Lives Matter and the whole COVID situation. But it's been interesting for sure, but thankfully I have some great followers who support me along the way.
Awesome. Thanks, Alyssa. How about Dion? What's happening in your world?
So kind of similar in a way to what Alyssa said. For me, COVID actually gave me an opportunity to maybe have a little bit more time on my hands than I normally do. And so it was kind of like my mission at that point to just support and spread information as, you know, just as much as possible. So, I mean, there's always so much to cover. I mean, you're getting press releases like out the wazoo. I mean, so you really do have to sometimes be picking and choosing, you know, what you decide. There's only so many days in a week, right? But it just became really important to me to just share information pretty much 5, 6, 7 days a week on what any restaurants, breweries, distilleries were offering. Just, I mean, and maybe even a little bit more specific as far as like even including a website or a phone number, just, I mean, because I really didn't, it was very near and dear to my heart to obviously not watch these places go under. And so I wanted to make sure everyone had that at their fingertips. I mean, I think we live in such a world of convenience. So I was like, well, maybe if putting a phone number or a website and being very specific about their takeout options could be helpful. And so I hope that was, you know, getting the information that needed to be shared across in a very diligent way. Beyond that too, so I'm also a yoga teacher that I predominantly have done brew house yoga. And in yoga, we call something bhava, when you like kind of put your finger in the air and like feel like, what is like everyone like feeling, you know, like it's a very like empathetic way to like look at our culture and our society. And I think as a journalist, I mean, I didn't just start with food and beverage. I mean, it was definitely more of a, you know, politically affiliated approach. And so I do think that those kind of things, like even speaking to the comment from earlier, like it really matters, like when you can weave in maybe some of your personal thoughts with just some logic, and then share that with good information and how that applies to the food. It's very rewarding for me. Like, I feel like that's, that's my mission, is to just share good information.
Bava, I like that a lot.
I actually wanted to jump in and just add one thing now that I've
Please.
heard your other two great answers. Specific to New York, I think something that my audience really reacted to, I did a lot of stories of getting beer delivered and commented on people's safety, as well as the safety when we picked things up, as far as like who's wearing masks, like social distancing, how quick everything was. And my audience really reacted to being like, oh, I would feel good now going to that brewery and picking things up, because like it's so great to see all the hand sanitizer and things like that. So I've been trying to focus, like I've been to a couple breweries recently about gloves, masks, all that good stuff. And I think, yeah, a lot of people responded to that in ways that I was not expecting. So important information for people.
Definitely. I think that's of such value. And I think that empathy across the board is so wonderful to hear from all of you. Whitney, I love the question that you put in the comments. I'm going to throw it out there to our crew. She's looking for some do's and don'ts on how to foster brewery and brand influencer relationships. And you guys are so the pros for this question. Mandy, you're still on the screen. I think your background is the loudest, so I'll keep picking on you. No, you don't have to change anything. I'm just choosing randomly who's going to go first, and it's going to be you. So I'm going to keep putting you on the spot, please.
Yeah, I think mine is a little varied, because I also am a journalist and I write like a column for VinePair. So a lot of my interaction with breweries is more around doing stories than it is around my Instagram. But something that I really appreciate is always getting a heads up when people want to send samples and telling me what's new about the sample, what's different, and being really open. If I talk to a brewery and I say, oh, I'm so happy you're doing a sour beer, but I'm actually focused on, I can't think, dry hop stouts this time. Like, do you have anything coming up? And just people who are transparent and trust me to, not share their secrets or whatever, and keep me updated on what they're doing. I think it makes it a lot easier for me to work what's coming up for them into coverage, especially if I can get a heads up a month. That sounds like a lot, maybe 2 weeks out. Usually when people are like sending me a sample, they're like, this is already out on our taps and it's a limited release, so it has to be covered the next 30 days. And I'm like, well, my editor usually works at least 21 days out. So I think that, yeah, like just keeping things open and giving me as much heads up as they feel comfortable with those are what I find so helpful. And then I always want to make sure I work those things into coverage where they fit, because they're helping me out by giving me such a great heads up. So that's something really important to me.
I think that's a great piece of advice. And for that matter, any media that you're working with. So Mandy does a lot of freelance, which entails writing for multiple publications. But whether you're talking with the freelance journalists themselves or the publication, ask what they're working on well into the future. Ask for an editorial calendar. These resources are available to you, and it'll help you get those relationships stronger, because the lead time goes a long way. I can relate as a former journalist myself. Alyssa, what input do you have on do's and don'ts for fostering good relationships with all the breweries that you work with?
Definitely. I've worked at a lot of breweries in the past, and obviously that's what I would rather work with is breweries, and especially craft breweries for that matter. I would say, know what you are wanting out of the relationship. There's so many times where I get emails from, different breweries that say, hey, I want to send you some beer. And I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do with it? I will gladly accept your beer. And I don't know, do you want a story? Do you want me to talk about it on a live video? Do you want to post? And then being prepared, if you do want a post, depending on the amount of followers, be prepared to pay for that. Because it is work at the same time. You know, I have to think about an appropriate way to represent your brewery. And I have to come up with the content. I have to take time out of, you know, brewing to post something. So I always try to, you know, just kind of lay it out and just say, hey, look, these are my rates. And then be willing to negotiate instead of just saying, I'm sending you free beer, you should post about it, kind of thing. And then I always kind of say, you know, full disclosure, I am going to be completely honest. If I don't like your beer, I might say that too. And you should be willing to take that risk, I think. If you're paying for it, I think it might be a little bit of a different story. If I got like something that had an off flavor, I might, you know, email you first instead of going ahead and posting about it. But just being prepared of knowing what you want, being prepared to pay, and then doing research on how much, you know, an influencer post is worth. There's plenty of websites out there, including what I usually use is called Social Blue Book. And you can go on and literally put anyone's handle in that website, and it will tell you exactly what their engagement is, how many followers they have, and then what a post is worth and what a story post is worth. And sometimes I can even like bundle that together if we wanted to make a deal, but just being prepared to negotiate with those kinds of things and not expecting for, you know, not expecting something just because you're sending someone beer, at least for me.
I said, I think that's totally fair. I think it goes for journalists as well. And not to say that journalists aren't influencers and influencers aren't journalists, but just to say that if you're reaching out to a publication, I think you run the risk of someone not liking what you send them or not liking what you tell them and running with it. But to that matter, I also think that when you do your homework and you work with influencers, journalists, and beyond who really know what they're talking about, and you're making a great product, then I think you're in a very safe place to be doing that sharing. And Dion, I am hoping that you can jump in there and take it wherever you want to answer that question too. You're muted, Dion.
All right, there we go. Sorry, this whole Zoom thing is I'm still learning to mute and unmute.
I am too, and the people across have a doorbell, so I'm trying to be mindful. If anybody hears a ding dong, it's probably not at your house. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying I feel like Alyssa should go last because I feel like, yeah, I mean, we obviously got to sit next to each other last year, and you know, we went out for beers afterwards and had some pretty thorough conversations. And I do feel like I'm sure a lot of people that are sitting within this Zoom call today can appreciate that. I think creatives are radically underpaid. I do think that you know how long it takes to put together a social media post, an article, stories, and we all are very thoughtful, I think, about the way that we construct those avenues. And so I do think for breweries that are kind of open to negotiating and saying like, hey, like, not only do we want to send you product, but maybe pay you for your time, it's really welcome. I think especially after you work on projects for years and years, you're kind of like, okay, like I think that we're at that space. And I think that it's important for whether you're writing, doing social media, brewing, I mean, whatever it is, like, you should get paid for your time. And I think that harboring that relationship is just like out of pure respect. So I think that's something we touched on a lot last year too, just like maybe breweries being a little bit more aware of, hey, like, there's a lot to be had here. There's good feedback. I mean, what Alyssa said too, like, if I go into a restaurant and I have something, I just recently went to like a new restaurant that's coupled with a brewery. It's really popular and well-known in Denver. And yeah, I mean, I had to send something back like a time or two. And I mean, I kind of felt like a shithead, but it's like, what was I doing there if I didn't give them feedback? You know, like, if I just like ate it and then like wrote some kind of shitty review, like, that's not really my purpose. So I think that just having that open communication and even just giving, as you know, was mentioned by Mandy, like a heads up, because yeah, sometimes people are like, yeah, so is this article going to be ready like next week? I'm like, I mean, I got shit to do. Like, you know, like I have a calendar here, you know? And so I think that just that kind of creating a relationship with the person that you're working with, it means a lot to me personally and professionally. So yeah, I think that's my biggest like ding dong.
You guys, all three of you are so wonderful. I asked Alyssa and Dion and Mandy to be here because I love what they put out there. I get really good insight on their communities. I get homebrew advice. I get really nitty gritty professional brewing insight and all of the above. And if you're not following them already, they all have great content. And I think that they do a very responsible and just fantastic job of telling the stories of the craft barley community. And I say responsible because they value their time, but they also value the product they're talking about. And all three of them have shown a lot of respect to all the different companies that we work with. So if you're not in touch with them, I recommend getting in touch with them. If you gals want to share your emails in this thread or even just your handles so that people can DM you and get in touch. Sadly, we are at our noon mark, so I want to make sure that we stay on track, but I also know that I could talk to you all day about all these topics, and I know everyone else could too. So feel free to pop your handles and or an email address in here because I know these guys probably have questions, and they probably want to send you beer to try if they haven't already. So yeah, thank you all so much for your time and for being here. And check out the video that these radical humans put together. Props to Chloe. She's not here today, but she put the video together, and these gals provided incredible footage, and they will school you on how to get new followers. So watch that. And yeah, thank you all so much. We're going to take a quick beer break, basically, so I can go to the bathroom, and I'll let you guys all chat and hang amongst yourselves, and I'll see you again at, well, it will be 12:05 here, but wherever you're calling from this morning or this afternoon. Thanks again, ladies.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you're the best.
So fun. Let's just keep doing it every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds great. I will give that little shout, and we'll say it again at the end, but we're going to do craft social media again in 2021 at the beginning of the year. That's when we usually intend to do this workshop, but COVID. So we are going to be doing it at the beginning of 2021. And because of the virtual format, no matter what crazy business is going on in the world, we'll still be able to gather. So ladies, I'd love to have all three of you back, and we can do it again and see what's going on in 6 months.
Yes, I would love that.
That sounds great. Great.
Yeah, that'd be
All
great
right.
to meet everyone in person. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Mandy and I are finally meeting in person. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
In Zoom person. We've never
Yeah.
I've never heard your voice before.
This is pandemic as close as you get us to as pandemic person.
I'm into
so.
it. I like it. All right, folks, 2 shakes. We'll see you in a couple minutes.
Hey, Alyssa, I got a quick question for you.
Yeah, definitely. What's up?
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, thanks. Good. It's good to see you. I follow you on Instagram, so it's good to see you in person here.
Yeah.
Cool, right on. Yeah. Yeah, no, I have a beer influencer that's kind of local. I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And I had her on my podcast, and I think one of the things that she was really well, she kind of like does marketing as well.
Oh.
But
Mhm.
yeah, like she basically created this large following. And I think she might have been on that same list that you were on in Men's Health.
Okay. Who-
PDX Beer Girl.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, but she tried to create this whole business around like kind of the influencer, and created
Mhm.
rates for like, do you want me to come out to your event, promote your brewery, promote your beers, like. And
Yeah.
I think she just was really let down at like how few breweries understood what it would take to hire like an influencer.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that's just a comment or a question, but I did, just in general, it seems like that's the case.
Yeah, it's so true. Honestly, there's been like maybe 2 or 3 breweries that I've actually gotten paid from.
Right.
Most of the time I get emails like, "Hey, we want to send you some beer," and I just send an email back that I'm like, "I would love to have your beer, but at the same time, like I can't guarantee a post. I might post in my stories, and if, it's most likely not going to make it on a full post if you're not willing to compensate." So, yeah, breweries, they do not have a budget for that, which coming from a brewery, working at a small brewery, I realize that is a real situation.
Yeah.
Same time when I have people like, I'll just throw a name out there, like Firestone Walker reach out to me and they don't have a budget. And I'm like, well, it is kind of crazy. Honestly, most of the time it's beer related products companies that I get approached by, like hangover recovery drinks. I feel like I get an email from one of those people like every week. Just a lot of random like actual companies who are trying to get their name out there. I think are a little bit more in the know and a little bit more willing to pay as compared to breweries, which I wish that would change with a lot of the bigger ones for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Cool.
That's a good question. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question, Alyssa.
Yeah, sure.
So I am helping run Spice Trade Brewing Company in Colorado's social media now. As of yesterday, I'm the only person now who's running their social media. So now I'm like responding to inquiries from people and things like that. If someone reaches out saying I'm an influencer and would you like to have me over at your brewery? First of all, I had some skeptical eyes to start with because like 20,000 followers, but like 30 to 50 likes on every page. So I'm like,
yeah,
it's tough to tell like who's real and who's not. Do you have any
for sure. I think that you might have to double check this because it's been a while since I've been on there, but the Social Blue Book, I'm like 90% sure that it shows engagement. So you can take anybody's Instagram handle and plug it into their little like calculator thing, and it'll tell you like what their engagement rating is. And like, honestly, mine's not incredible either, but it's like compared to theirs, if they have 10,000 followers and they're only getting like 30 likes at a time, they probably have really, really bad engagement, which kind of is suspicious. Like they bought their followers, you know what I mean? Yeah. So outside of that, I would probably just, pick and choose people that you think will represent your brand well. Like not all craft beer influencers are the same. And if there's somebody who you think really rings true with your brand and what you kind of want to put out there, I would say, yeah, probably work with them. But be picky about it because you can, right? You're the one giving away product and inviting people into your space and to represent you. So,
and does engagement just constitute like their responsiveness to people, or is it like your fans who are commenting are engaging with each other?
Yeah, it's kind of like say I post something and I have 30,000 followers, but like only like 5% are like commenting on it or liking my posts or sharing it with other people, or it's messaging me from that. Like you have like silent followers if you don't have a high engagement. They half the time don't see your posts because they're not interacting with you at all.
So engagement is like your followers engaging, not like you engaging with people who are commenting.
I think it maybe goes both ways, but I think it's mostly your followers engaging with your content. Yeah.
Thanks.
I'll add a little bit to that answer for you, Connor. So like an individual post, for example, will have more engagement if you and your followers are talking on it. However, if you are like posting on individual posts, that's not necessarily giving you the stats as an engaged brand. It does help you on the algorithm though. So there's no reason you shouldn't be talking with all the people that you're engaged with already. And that's advice I have for everybody here is figure out what brands, ambassadors, like Alyssa said, those people who really best represent and align with your values and people who you want to represent you and companies that you like, and engage with them. Tell them the post that you like and give them the emojis, and those sorts of back and forth conversations are really going to drive engagement across the board. Yeah, really good recommendations from our influencers. You guys are wonderful. Another of the people here who I believe is an influencer, but he works in a different kind of area of the space, is my friend Ryan. And I say that he's an influencer because he does all sorts of different social media projects, and he and I actually know each other because of a podcast. If you want to take a listen, it's all about content calendars and it's linked out in your portal. It's also, I'll say that content calendars is such an important topic that we talk about a lot, and it's going to be a big bulk of our next craft social media workshop because we've gotten so many questions from you all about it already. But Ryan and I first met because we were on his podcast together talking content calendars, and I have been so honored to do a variety of different design and other collaboration projects with him since. He's a good friend, he's a good colleague, and I just I love him as a trusted member of our tribe. So without further ado, I'll let him introduce himself and jump into his talk that he has for you today on differentiating through design. And Ryan, I know we went a little over, but don't worry about it. Do your thing, and I'll yell at you if things get out of control over there.
All right. Awesome. Excuse me. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah.
Everyone hear me? Everyone hear me okay? Yeah? It's all good? Okay, cool. Great.
Oh, do you need screen share? Do you want me to make you a host, Ryan? Or?
Yeah, if you want to do make me a host, and I'll do a screen share, and I'll keep an eye on if anyone's
okay, cool. Yeah, I think we have who we're gonna have. So unless anybody like falls out of the host or out of the conference, we'll.
Okay. Cool. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Let me let me do this here. I got so many windows open, but I think we'll get this going. All right, cool. So everyone should see that. Great. So yeah, my name is Ryan Wheaton. I run Craft Brew Creative, which is a branding and design studio based in Portland, Oregon. Been a professional designer for close to 20 years now. Been in the kind of craft beer space industry for the last 7 years or so. And I do also host a podcast called Branding Brews, and it's been going on for about 3 years. As Emily mentioned, she was a great guest. We had a lot of fun on that. But yeah, there's over 50 episodes. They're all in-depth, like hour-long interviews that are on specific topics on branding and marketing and design for beer. And each episode goes deep and it's very focused. So I appreciate everybody coming. I'm going to run through this. I've got about 10 tips here. I'm going to run through them here in the next 15 minutes. So the first one, so this is going to relate to kind of more the design and visual presentation on your social media channels. So the number one tip here is to reference and utilize brand standards. Sometimes people call these brand guidelines. Essentially what it is, it's kind of the Bible for your brand. It has like your brand colors, it has your brand logo usage, your typography usage. And it's all about consistency because consistency plays such a large role in building brand awareness. And on social media, like, it's so flighty. It's so here and there. People are scrolling. So people say it can take an average of 5 to 7 impressions before someone will remember your brand. So if you have some consistency with the images you're posting or how you're posting things, then that'll just make those impressions like stick more as people go through. So yeah, if you don't have a brand standards guideline or manual, you can kind of create one. And I'll kind of talk about some more tips here in the next couple that'll kind of assist with telling you more about that. So yeah, make sure you reference it and use that for anything you're posting, anything you're designing, and anything you're putting out publicly. But So the number 2 tip is to use brand fonts and consistent typography. I like to try to avoid using the fonts from your logo because what that does is that dilutes your brand. It dilutes your brand identity. So if you can imagine your logo has a font and it's on an image, and then all the other text around that is the same font, all of a sudden your logo just kind of gets like lost. It kind of gets diluted. So I'm personally not a fan of using the same font that's in your logo for other presentations and marketing collateral. Use fonts that are very decorative sparingly. Otherwise, your designs can look really cluttered and busy. You can keep visual interests in your fonts by varying the weights. So you can vary like bold, regular, thin. And I have an example here on this slide showing some of the hierarchy. And on the top one there, it shows how like the top is in a light, and it shows how the kind of center part is in like a medium to bold. So varying these things creates a rhythm and it creates a visual interest. If all those were the same size and they were all bold, they would run together. People wouldn't be able to distinguish the content on that image. So that's a really important one. You want to have breathing room around your text. It's really important. So you want to have space between text. You don't want to have it too crammed into one side or crammed in the corner of your image. Because that's just going to look cluttered and it's going to, it just doesn't read very well. So keep space around your text. The number 3 is to use your brand colors. I think that's pretty straightforward. I think, as I mentioned, there's those 5 to 7 impressions before someone becomes more aware of your brand or like starts to recognize your brand. So if you imagine just using all different colors all the time, then that's going to really confuse people, or at least not make them easily as aware of your brand. This is a little caveat, I guess, is if you're promoting an individual beer brand. So if you're posting a specific beer that has its own brand identity and its own brand, then obviously that's a different case. Use dissected images, kind of just a fancy word for just a split image. I think this one, if you want to put text on an image, this is a great way to do it because it stands out, but also leaves room for the photo. And you can do that with a hard split, where like on the left-hand side there, it's a full hard color split. Or you can do one where you overlay color, like on the right hand with the farmhouse saison. It's kind of a split image, but you can still see the photo in the background. And we mentioned some of the tools earlier that you can use to do this, like Canva. I'm sure Photoshop Elements, I think that's free. And I'm sure you can do all that in there as well. Okay, number 5 is to use filters. And I think filters kind of got a bad rap, like #NoFilter, but I think they work. And here's the trick is that you need to stay consistent. Consistency, again, is what helps to build your brand awareness. And there's also tons, you don't need to stay locked into Instagram. There are tons of other apps out there in the App Store that you can do some really fun and creative things. Your brand identity and your brand might have a certain theme, like maybe you're vintage, maybe you're whatever. You can probably find a filter that would fit that, and you can kind of create like a filter recipe. Make sure that you, as you create a filter, take note of what you did to create that filter, and make sure anyone doing marketing or anyone posting on social has that recipe and maintains that for the appropriate use. I think is still a good way to kind of create a unique look. This one's really fun, interactive, a bit more involved, but it's to create a narrative using Instagram carousels. This guy, his name is Dane Walker. He does a really great job at this. He's kind of a marketing guy, so he's constantly on social channels. But the idea here is that you might have seen this before, is that you can use Instagram carousels and you can stitch the images together. So as you swipe from one image to the next, it's basically seamless. I put splits between the images here just to show how each individual image looks, but they're perfectly seamless. And this, what I thought was really clever, is that this guy essentially creates kind of, he walks you through, they're kind of almost like infographics, but as you scroll to each individual image, it takes you along in kind of a story. And I think it's just a really unique way to do it. And you can see kind of on his post, he has a really long text. So he explains everything in that post, but you can really scroll through and get this narrative. You can do this essentially by creating just one really wide image in whatever photo or image editor you're using. And then you can just go, and then after that, you can crop each image and export those each individual images so that when you put them in your Instagram carousel, they're seamless. But you can design them as one wide, large image. That way you can see the entire kind of narrative you're creating there. So you can also, number 7 here, you can create campaigns using label art. I think one challenge as a designer, or even, as a brewery, obviously is coming up with the creative themes and ideas for your labels. But a lot of times you do create really fun and unique themes and kind of brands. And it's important that when you're creating a label, that you are aware of individual elements that can be dissected, that can be taken apart and used across other items, right? So across merchandise, hats, t-shirts. And this obviously carries over to your social media as well. So for this example, the label's on the bottom left there, right? And it's, you can pull out those flowers, the poppies, the California poppies, and you can put the name around there. So that kind of acts as its own little identity kind of logo for that beer. Then on the bottom right image there, the Belgian style pale, that was pulling the background pattern, creating its nice little background. So just be aware that, how can you take your label and promote that in as many different ways as possible to create that brand identity for each of your beers. Essentially kind of just, creating a campaign for each beer. So number 8 is using color backdrops for photos. And I'm sure many of us have heard of the Hop Culture. On Instagram, they are Hop Culture Mag. And I think they've kind of pioneered this a bit. I think I wouldn't say they created this style. I know other, photographers have done this, but in the kind of beer space, I feel like they did kind of create this. But each of their photos has a solid color backdrop. And you can do that with any kind of, essentially you can get a color poster board. You can go to the craft store or a roll of butcher paper in different colors, but a poster board, and you can lay that on a table and just curve the back up behind it and just take your camera in far enough to crop it. I know someone mentioned lighting and Emily, giving away this awesome light box. Hop Culture, they have one light source. You can see the shadows, which in photography people try to avoid that. They try to have multiple light angles to reduce shadows. But Hop Culture just leaned into it, and people love it. Their Instagram is huge. Breweries love to be featured because they do these fun photos, and I'm sure they get a lot of engagement as well. So yeah, color backdrops, just something to think of on how you create your photo. All right. So number 9 is photo lighting. Again, you can get a light box. It's literally a box that has lights on all sides and white reflection, and it has an opening in the front to where you can take a photo. Light boxes tend to be a little bit limiting in that they're a certain size, but one of my big tips is really to get by ambient light, to get by a window. Interior lighting to a camera is actually pretty dim. So natural daylight, even though to you kind of like looking at a light inside versus looking at a window feels the same, to a camera lens, they're not. So one great way is you can just take a table, if you don't already have one by a window, and put it up by there. Natural ambient light, so maybe if the sun's coming right in, it's going to give you hard shadows, so you might want to avoid that. But if you can get bright light that's kind of ambient. And one big trick also is to get a big white piece of foam core, and you can get little clamps, and you can just stand up the foam core on the opposite side of the window, and that reflects light back onto your products, your can or your glass or your food, to kind of balance out the light so it's coming from both sides. You might have a spot in your brewery or in your office that has a window on each corner, and in that case, then you can put your table in between those, and now you've got two light sources. But really utilizing daylight is, if you don't have professional photography setup, is a great way to get great lighting and to get great product shots. And the last tip is to make a scene. So I mentioned Adobe Dimension. This is one of the images I put together in Adobe Dimension. So this was literally just a photo of a crate of oranges, and I dropped that can in there with Adobe Dimension, wrapped the label around it, set the lighting, and I just rendered that out. But and I'm sure you've probably seen these, a lot of like kind of the popular beer influencer or just beer accounts on Instagram. And, you know, again, creating like a brand identity, creating a campaign around each beer. Well, and especially with ingredients. Ingredients are huge because it gives people a visual cue. It draws people in to want, like they imagine like the flavor of that beer. As I mentioned earlier, like if you have like a coffee stout or a coffee porter, just go get some coffee beans and spill them out on the table with like the coffee bag or something, and even have like maybe like a shot of espresso or something next to it, and plop your can in the middle of that. All these little details really add up and really draw the person into it. So you might have creative themes. So like, yeah, I'm drawing a blank, but you know, if you have a different theme with like different characters or different whatever, you could try to just use that label to inspiration to kind of get real life objects to create a scene around that. And that's really going to elevate your photos, make them more engaging, and want to draw people in. Yeah, so those are my 10 tips for rocking your social media and making an appealing brand on social media.
Kick-ass tips, Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
You rocked your presentation too. Thank you so much. And
Of
if
course.
you guys want a recap, there is an article that's linked out in our portal so that you can get all those tips again, because I know personally I learned a bunch and want to revisit that list and can apply it quite a bit. So it's nice to have that resource thereafter. And I really can't recommend Ryan enough. He's a brilliant designer. He's got a really interesting concept called the Craft Label Company that he formulated post-COVID as a helper for companies that are needing labels on a more small batch basis. He is just a really great podcaster and good person to know. And so I wish that we could all pick your brain right now with all of our questions, Ryan, but I am going to move on to the next segment and just encourage everybody to connect with you separately or pop into messages, because I know that, like I said, I want to pick your brain. I know everybody else does too. So
I'll hop into some chat here a little bit and address
perfect.
some
Yeah,
questions
I
one
see it
on one.
kind of blowing up over there. So
Sure.
thank you.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, without further ado, I'm going to move on to our next and last segment, which is a panel that is near and dear to my heart, because craft malt, in my opinion, is truly just this next frontier of craft beer. And there is so much to be said about the locality and the regionality and the flavor that local malt can create in a craft beer. And I also think that one of the things that our partners remind me of often is that there's economies of scale and at question here. And there's just so many important things that craft malt does for not just the flavor of our beers, but the economy and the agriculture in the communities in which we live. And our partners, Root Shoot Malting and Murphy and Rood, are two of the really big craft malt advocates in my life who've taught me so much about this topic and about what they're up to. And it's just really exciting to be able to host them today. Before I continue, Emily, do we need to help Dan get in here?
I know he said he's been in the waiting room, I guess, but
I wonder if he's trying to call into our other weekly Zoom chat. Maybe he's in the wrong one.
I'm not sure. I know I keep texting back and forth, but we'll try to figure it out on our end.
Once you guys get started, I will jump into email and send him another link.
Okay.
Cool. Well, everyone, this is, like I said, topic near and dear to my heart. I think so frequently brewing companies invest in craft malt and then they don't really discuss it on their social media very frequently. And it's such a great topic. And so I invited two of the people who have really helped me learn about how breweries can be telling these stories on their social. And Emily, I'll let you start introducing yourself, and then Jeff, jump in, and I'll continue texting Dan from Root Shoot Malting so we can get him in here. Go ahead, Em.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks. Emily Olander, co-founder of Root Shoot Malting. My husband, Todd, and Todd's a fifth generation. Have been farming since, well, homesteaded in 1926. Farm the farm, I think, has been he went back to it. So because we don't have to. We're within a 50-mile radius. We have probably 400 breweries close to us. So we're pretty lucky with the location that we're so close to everybody. So, and Jeff, I'm excited to chat with you too. I know that you came, I think, so we hosted the Craft Maltsters Guild alongside Jesse. The conference came to Fort Collins. So I know that Jeff, I think you met Todd and came to the Malt House, but I wasn't around for a lot of that conference. I work as a hygienist as well, so that's my full-time position. But anyway, I'm excited to hear more about what you guys have going on.
So I guess it's my turn. I'm Jeff Bloom. I'm the founder and maltster here at Murphy and Rood Malting Company in Charlottesville, Virginia. We opened up production early 2018. It took us kind of like 8 months to build this place. It was painful, but we finally did open it up. And we are a bit unique, I guess, in that we are a specialty malt focused malt house. So we, of course, produce base malts, but we built, I built the malt house to really be full capability going to market. In that I am, the other interesting part of our malt house is that I do not have some inspiring agricultural based story to tell. I used to be a corporate slug for a huge government contractor in Washington, D.C. But what I got really good at, I managed bid teams that went over after these, multi-bazillion-dollar government contracts. What I did get really good at is defining value. And so looking at that and looking at the beer world, knowing that, silo-based malt was more of a pennies a pennies shootout than anywhere that it necessarily came from or what it tasted like. We tried to focus in on the stuff that could differentiate a brewery from everybody else. Because I mean, don't look now, but until the Craft Maltsters Guild kind of came around and started building essentially the backbone of this small scale malt, movement, I should say. We craft beer was very quickly evolving, but the supply chain was still stuck in Budweiser mode. And so everybody's using essentially the same ingredients to make a very, very different kinds of beer. And so what we wanted to do is try to focus in on helping breweries as breweries were, and the market was getting pretty thick. We realized that the supply chain would pretty quickly become a very important differentiating factor for breweries. So long story short, we built the malt house with a much more flex capability kiln. We can make a lot of different high kiln malts. We invested in a drum roaster that allows us to expand our product line probably 2 or 3-fold. And so what's interesting about that story is that as I was pitching this idea to Virginia breweries, I just had this like genius business model, and everyone of course was like smiling and nodding as I was pitching this to them. And then I opened my doors and everybody bought Pilsner malt. So it was this interesting concept of trying to figure out where the craft beer market was in the ingredient supply chain. So it's been a really interesting and inspiring few years here to see how we can, even continue to change the craft beer game, as sometimes people claim that it gets a little tired, which I think is that's a far cry from the truth. But we're excited to be here. I was a one-man show for a while. I've got a full-time guy, Christian, here. I work with Diecast Media a lot in our early years for a lot of our content media marketing. I hitched on to a lot of film development to try to tell stories and build narrative. So I'm not necessarily saying we're awesome at it, but I'm glad I can be here to talk about it.
I think you're awesome at it, Jeff. I'll say it because he won't.
Oh, you lie.
I think Jeff and Emily are 2 really fantastic examples of malt houses that are both putting out really engaging content, telling the story through a variety of mediums, and also partnering up with craft breweries and distilleries, essentially their customers, to tell those stories. And I would love to hear from you guys today on what suggestions you have for our breweries and distilleries listening on how they can get the word out better about what they're doing, or I should say what they're brewing with, and why they should do that. You want to go first, Jeff? I feel like we've been crusading on our soapbox about this in the inbox for about a week, so I'll let you go in there. And Emily, you and I do this pretty much every day too, but I'll pick on you first, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this can be a multi-headed monster in the end. I think what it really ends up coming down to, from a brewery or distillery side of things, is really talking to us, which is also an added benefit of having a more localized maltster. You can actually talk to us because we make the stuff, which is mind-blowing. But what is important for us as maltsters, and I'm speaking for myself here, we respect your brands. I mean, I don't necessarily come in, I want to help brands market their investment, and I mean, you guys are paying more for what I make. I mean, there's no like big secret about the fact that we pay a very good premium to our farmers for really good grain, and we don't have the economy of scale, though some craft malt houses are certainly getting there. we don't have the economy of scale to essentially sell this stuff for free. So, but at the same time, we don't necessarily expect us to then insert ourselves into your brand and that, you know, we make you who you are. So, you know, I have a lot of respect for a brewery's brand and what help that they need. We, on our side, prep a lot of things, whether it's, you know, entrance door stickers to say that this brewery, you know, uses malt. The craft malt certified seal is a really good option now. But communicating with your supplier on what helps you market your use of our stuff. I mean, there's no shortage of ideas and ways to do it. It's more trying to pinpoint exactly how a craft beer brand wants to use our ability to do that for their benefit. And that's what we want you to do. That's not a bad question to ask. And so it'll come back, and I want Emily to, I don't want to blabber on, but I mean, I do have a good list of options to give suggestions, but they're also a wide range of involvement and you know, time commitments of what people want to do. I do think that tagging us in social media is a great idea, except I think it also comes to the point of becoming predictable, and so you can expand upon that a little bit more and really engage people as to why you're actually using us, not just because you can. So I'm happy to share, you know, some of my punch list stuff as we get into this, but definitely it's all about conversation, I think.
I know we're only as successful as our brewers are, right? So, I mean, for us, we're largely based on having face-to-face interactions. So, you know, if we don't have that relationship built with our brewer, then I don't know if they would necessarily see the importance in working with us. So that's a big part of what we do is, I mean, it's been difficult the last few months to not be able to, you know, go to the breweries and talk with some of our brewers in person. We're also kind of lucky, though, I think, on the flip side of that we do have the farm to host a lot of our brewers to come up and learn about, you know, how we harvest and what we're doing on a month-to-month basis at the farm. So we've hosted quite a few events at the farm to get our brewers engaged. We host a field day every year during barley harvest. That's, I think, a really useful tool for us because I think a lot of the brewers that we work with don't necessarily understand or haven't been that close to the agriculture side of beer. So I think that's been a really cool thing for us over the last several years. And I think, you know, much like the farm to table movement in food, I think that there is this, whatever you want to call it, acres to ales or soil to suds movement in beer. So I think the consumer is asking for, you know, where their products are coming from. So, you know, if we give the tools necessary to these brewers to be able to communicate that with their consumer, then that's kind of our goal, is to figure out what tools those are. I think that's always been the hardest part for us, is what the brewers need from us to then relay the message to the end user and the beer drinker. So.
Those are all such great tips. I asked Emily and Jeff before this chat to give me their recommendations on what breweries and distilleries can do to best promote their maltster. And we wrote an article for you all. It's linked out in your portal, so definitely get in there. And I love what both of you said about hosting breweries, even if it's in a small capacity, just to kind of let those staff members learn about it. I think bartenders are some of the best people you can get in the malt house because they are the marketing face of your brand in so many capacities. They're right there on the front lines, and they have the ability to help you tell the story too. And if you can host them and get them excited about it, I think that story can come from a much more authentic place versus them just talking about something they don't really know about to help their owner sell that beer that day, for example. So I have the honor and pleasure of working on 2 content-specific projects for Murphy and Rood and Root Shoot. And I'm going to have you guys kind of give the skinny today. But these 2 maltsters are working on content projects that I think the breweries and distilleries they support should get on board with wholeheartedly, take balls and just run with them, because they're such cool efforts and they're so important, and they really embody why we use craft malt and why we give a damn about it. So Em, I'll pick on you first. 100 Lease is this, it's a documentary film that I'm just so pumped about, but I'll let her tell you all the things.
I know, Emily, you and I have been working on this for so long now, I feel like.
You much longer than I.
So 100-Year Lease is kind of a project that stemmed from working with a videographer, Traverse Image. He's a good friend of ours who directed Crafting a Nation quite a few years ago. I think it was 2013 maybe. Anyway, he lives in Denver, and he and I connected early on, and we created branding videos where he would come up to the farm once or twice a month, and we would, try to create content that would, be useful for our brewers and for us, and just to try to get our message out on what we're doing at the farm. So we did that with him for about 2 years, and this project kind of stemmed into something a little bit larger that we didn't totally anticipate. So, as we were working together, our malt house feels like it's kind of in the middle of Denver. We have houses surrounding us. So, Todd remembers growing up on Highway 60 where the malt house is located, where he could ride his bike on, and now it's this major highway. So we fight development land, and it's just hard to farm in the area where we're at now because the land is just depleting quite quickly. So this film is kind of a, it's something that we're really proud of, that we're trying to, try to get people engaged with agriculture and the struggles that farmers deal with on a day-to-day basis, whether it be the loss of land or water, just our conservation efforts behind the farm too, is kind of relayed in this film. So Emily and I are trying to figure out how to launch it specifically. Our idea was to try to host in-person events at the breweries for this entire year, and that kind of was squashed earlier this spring. So I think we're going to launch kind of an online platform and virtually release it alongside Traverse Image. And I think it'll just be a really cool tool for the brewers to also, show their support for the local agriculture and craft malt and why they use craft malt, and their excitement for trying to keep farmland readily available for them. So so still trying to fine tune some of those details, but I think that hopefully in the next month or two we'll probably get that rolling.
Yeah. You guys can preview the film, and it's part of your scavenger hunt. So jump in that link and check it out. It's beautiful and so worth it. And then Em, I'll add too that these guys are going to be going live with a petition that you can sign on their website too. And I think that is an important and easy way to show your support for any kind of a cause right now. And so you'll be able to do that on behalf of the 100-Year Lease campaign going forward. Jeff, do you want to jump in and tell us about the Millfresh campaign? Totally different campaign, but comes back to a lot of the same ideas.
Yeah, so Millfresh has been this concept in my head for for quite a while here. I am famous for being a little hesitant to put stuff out there. I mean, frankly, it's probably why my social media following is like 1,000 people. But this really gets back to the diversification and the differentiation of craft malting, and the fact that it is trying to celebrate the concept of not only using ingredients that haven't traveled half the world to get to you, but that also can capture a lot of the, or can at least evoke a lot of the emotional connection people have to drinking the beer where they are. And so, I think the easiest way is getting back to the original question of like, how can breweries help tell the story of craft malt is the traceability concept of it. I mean, a vast majority of us are single origin. It's not necessarily that blending is not cool. I mean, in our case, we just don't do it. It's it can be a bit of a pain in the ass, and there's infrastructure involved, but blending is not a bad thing. Single origin just gives you a unrecognized tool to communicate and to connect with your audience. So all of our bags, for instance, have we have a farmer network essentially all across the state of Virginia that we do it for Mother Nature risk reasons. We try to spread out our harvest across the state for weather implications. But each bag of malt just lists the farm name and the place and the location within the state. And so we do that, one, to tell you where it came from. Number two, to celebrate the concept of single origin and the fact that this came from something. This came from somebody. Like, somebody worked to grow this stuff. This stuff didn't just, appear in a bin somewhere. But it also is an opportunity for breweries or distilleries or whoever uses our product to link the location back to their customers. I mean, for all I know, somebody on the, reading the beer menu, if a brewery takes the time to include the location of these malts when they mention our name, you essentially connected that person to what you're producing. And so all it takes is just reading the label. And in the case of Root Shoot, I mean, that's a very easy answer as well. You don't even have to ask them. And so I think paying attention to, or asking your brewers to pay attention to, when bags arrive or when they are ordering malt, to have that conversation, it could very well potentially give you some ammunition to use in the marketing world. And so I think Mill Fresh kind of comes back to that whole concept of linking product to place, and the fact that it didn't come from some unknown corner of the world to get to you. And another interesting thing about Mill Fresh is that it's a very contentious topic, frankly. Fresh is like this big, scary word, and these concepts around, having to wait 21 and a half days or whatever before you use your malt. I mean, there are pros and cons to all of it. I believe in that concept of, resting and, with essentially letting malt come within itself after coming out of the kiln before it ships. But what Mill Fresh allows us to do is that it's a subjective thing. I mean, fresh can mean one thing to somebody else and one thing to another, to somebody else next to them. And so we don't necessarily define what fresh is. We know our concept of fresh, your concept of fresh. The concept is, are you thinking about it? And so we're trying to kind of pull on that emotional string of, are you thinking about it or not? And if you're not, do you want to? And that inherently brings in some consciousness into your ingredient purchasing.
I really like Jesse's comment. Fresh to me equals hip, cool, great. I totally agree. You're preaching to the choir here, Jeff. This is good practice for when I make you preach to the non-choir.
Can't wait.
What questions do you guys have for your maltsters before I take up all the time and space? Does anybody want to jump in with any questions for them?
I'll ask a question. Are you guys still doing like small group tours or field days? Like if we wanted to come by for like a team building day?
I think the last tour we gave was probably early part of March. So I think we're still open to it for sure. Of course, just with wearing masks and practicing your social distancing, but I'm hoping to get back into it. I think when you're on a farm, it's pretty easy to do that. So if you're outside and in the fields, we're totally open to having people around at the farm right now. So yeah, reach out to us. Brianna, are you with Lost Friend? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, reach out to us. We'd love to show you guys around. I know Alyssa and gosh, I can't remember her husband's name, but I know that
Andy.
Yep. I know that they've been up before. So yeah, we'd love to have you guys.
Cool.
Yeah, and same for us. I mean, we miss the interaction. We have to drink all the beer in our geezer, which is difficult. And so, in our place, it's open air enough that I don't necessarily think there's a concern on that side of being able to kind of keep distance. But hopefully it's something we can, that people will start taking us up on again soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really can't say enough times how important it is to talk about where your beer is coming from. And I've been doing a lot of research in these post-COVID, I don't want to say it's not going on anymore, but post-outbreak weeks, and consumers are that much more interested in where their product is coming from these days. And they are really trying hard to make sure that they're supporting local and supporting the things they care about. So now more than ever before, a really cheap and easy way to support your maltster is to connect with them on social, do cross promotion, take all of those tips from that article and beyond, and really just connect with them and get to know them. I think it's really opened up my eyes on the whole process and about the agriculture that goes into what we're all here for. So thank you, Emily and Jeff, for being in my ear, being in my corner, and just really teaching me a lot about how important this is. I also want to give a little shout out to Jessie. She's the director of the Craft Maltsters Guild, and she's here with us today. And I can't say enough good things about that organization and about the Craft Malt Seal. Thank you so much for coming today. You're awesome.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. While I wind things down, I want to introduce another person who is here with us today quietly. Her name is Callie, and she is one of the editors over at Brewer Magazine. And she has been creeping, listening to us for the last 2 hours and getting tons of fodder for future articles that she's writing. Hi, Callie. I'm so happy that you're here. Do you want to introduce yourself and give these guys a chance to connect with you for follow-up or future articles?
Yeah, hey, I actually, this whole time I was like, how do I unmute myself? And I just figured it out. So, know me with technology, I guess. Yeah, so I actually sent a message in the chat too, because I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to say anything, but here I am. I figured it out. So I'm Callie, and I'm with Brewer Magazine. We're a pretty small team, but we're basically just a beer industry magazine. So if you want to connect with us, we write, it's like a lot of kind of advice for smaller brewers or home brewers. That's kind of what we're about. You can check us out at brewermag.com. I'll send the link. And we actually just also launched a wine magazine, Vintner. So that's our next step. We're growing, and yeah, that's us. So check us out. Our wine magazine is vintnermag.com, and then we will also be printing that magazine in July. So I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys. And thanks, Emily. It's good to finally see your face after all this time.
I know. It's so nice to meet you. Callie and I email like every third day. So
it's a lot. Super cool.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Callie does a great job. So if you're not connected with her already, definitely recommend. I'll give another shout out to one of our participants. His name is Andrew, and he comes to us from Secret Hopper. Andrew, I sent you a message, but I'm wondering if you're maybe just dialed in right now. I'm unmuting you just in case you want to chime in, but if you don't, or you don't have the ability to do so, Secret Hopper is this really interesting secret shopping website that allows you to gauge customer service that's going on at your front of house operation. And I recommend looking into it now, especially in the wake of coronavirus, because they have some really innovative things going on. Andrew is great and Secret Hopper is great. And I'm trying to think if we have anybody else to give a little shout out to in my last remarks. Callie, were you going to say something? No? Okay. Just making sure. I saw like a hand raise. Big props to the Flashery. They have not only just been really fun to communicate with on social media, but they're going to offer up a discount for everybody who participates in our craft social media workshop. And so even if you aren't the winner of our amazing light box via scavenger hunt, you have the opportunity to get a discount on all of their products if you're looking for some new photo equipment to boost your strategy. We'll send those details in an email afterwards with details one more time about the scavenger hunt, due on Monday, so worth it. You might win a light box. And then we'll also send a little survey about how we did. And that survey is something that we encourage you to like really dive into the content, the expanded content before you fill out, and just keep us posted on what you want to hear about in the future, ways we can do better, and topics or questions that might still be lingering. We're happy to put you in touch with whoever is needed. We're going to do a couple of fun raffles. So everyone who's here today or popped into the chat at one point is going to get their name put in a raffle to win even more cool camera equipment and Radcraft swag and just a variety of other stuff. So we'll email you guys after we have all of your addresses and we'll give you the goods. Does anybody have any last questions or comments before we peace out? I'm going to hang out here if you want to connect with you guys, with each other, or ask questions or get emails or all the things. So jump in if you want to. I think Jeff is trying to say something, but he is muted.
Sorry, I was talking to myself. So I actually do have a curiosity question for the brewery employed folks here. Around how do you all communicate or interface with your brewing team, or if you are the brewer, how do you communicate with the marketing team and connecting the dots between what it is you're doing in the back and what they're doing pushing out to the front? How does that relationship work?
I can speak to that a little bit. I'm from Steelbender down here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we're relatively new. We were just celebrating our 3-year anniversary right when everything shut down. So we're a small enough leadership group that we hold weekly meetings. Right now they're on Zoom, but that leadership group includes marketing, the other owners, our head brewer, and then our GM and our chef. But what our sales and distribution manager and I have been pushing for a long time has been the use of Slack. We do believe in it being a great communication tool. And so we were using it a little bit before all this happened. And then when this happened and we couldn't be together and things were changing, every time the governor went on, something changed. We found that it became an incredible communication tool for us to get information out to the right folks quickly, to send out, to send out proofs of marketing that we were doing, because you can just do so much in that tool, to send out spreadsheets quickly. And so Slack has been really, really valuable to us. And I'm hoping actually, you know, we're going to continue to use that down the road. But that's how we're able to communicate with each other very well. And it's also, you know, I've been trying to talk the group into using it in front of house as well, because I think it's a great way to be a little bit of a motivator as well, for the entire staff. You know, let them see what a new beer can is going to look like. Let them, you know, get that kudos kind of in public when they make a good sale. So that's how we've been doing it, and I hope it will continue.
No, that's helpful. And if I can follow up real quick. So is it typically that when the conversation between, you know, the brewing side and the marketing side are communicating around, you know, upcoming releases or, you know, events that are going to feature a new beer perhaps, or any other situation, is it typically that are the marketing folks asking the brewer, you know, what do we need to push here? You know, what hops did you guys use? What do we need to highlight the malts that were used, or any of the other ingredients? Or is it the brewer telling the marketing folks, hey, we came up with this cool idea that we're pushing, can we push this out into the public realm? I mean, is it a two-way conversation, or are the marketing folks need to be asking the questions to get the information, or vice versa?
I think with us at least, again, we're small enough that the small group of us we've looked to the brewers to say, hey, this is something that we want to try out. And we ask questions around it, like, you know, why do you think this is a good beer to put out right now? And then we as huge beer fans come to the table with ideas as well. In fact, the beer we released just yesterday is actually named after my husband. Nobody really knows that, but it's because it was a beer that he's sort of been chasing the dragon on an IPA, and so that's what our brewer did. But I think I come from a writing background, so I find that I'm having to really dig quite a bit, and I don't necessarily lead them on with the answer that I want. I try to ask questions, and right now it is through Slack. It's not in person, because actually I share an office with the brewer normally, but right now it's through Slack, trying to get what that great marketing angle is going to be, that's going to intrigue, you know, our audience, whether it's highlighting a local malt that we're using, because we several of us down here just used a local malt made here in New Mexico, or it's, you know, it's using fruit from an orchard that's down the street, you know? So I find that I'm having to interview like a journalist quite a bit, which is okay. You know, it educates me, you know? So I love the conversation. It's very much a two-way conversation, but it's about us kind of getting each other excited. And then in turn, that's going to get the customer excited.
It's so interesting that you say that, Shelby, because I'm a former journalist turned publicist, and my job is constantly asking those open-ended questions. And how do you feel about that? And like, what's so interesting about that? And you do kind of find yourself digging. And I just asked in the chat, KB, I'm all over it, and I'll do it for everyone else too. But like, would some prompt questions help on really rooting down and getting to the story behind individual beers? I think that is such a great practice for everyone. We say at Radcraft all the time that beers should tell stories about your brand. And so we'll totally put some questions together as an extended resource for you to be able to ask about every individual beer. And I also think that's a good branding move too, to come home and say, why did we make this? And does it relate to who we are and what we do every time? If you can tell that story, it's so much more relatable to the customer than, well, people like IPA, so we, you know, threw some hops in.
Which is obviously, that's often the response that we get, right?
Yeah, totally. We bring what we want, and you can have the rest.
I told my husband the other day, I mean, God love him, but we were thinking about some other names, and I was just getting these great visuals to actually then, you know, turn around the marketing on it. And then we landed on using his name. I'm like, crap, I don't even know what to do with this. So it does take digging, because then you have to turn around and turn that into, you have to turn it into design elements, and you have to turn it into copy. And I don't want to say we just decided to do another IPA because we like IPAs. So you do have to drag it out a little bit.
Yeah. Good question.
And to be honest, like I have long thought that maybe what I should be doing on my end is like when we set up new accounts, just like I ask who's your accounts payable person, should I be asking who the marketing lead is on this stuff? I mean, I can't tell you how many missed opportunities are out there. I mean, I will have the most involved, interesting, focused conversations with brew staff, and it's not even a self promotion thing. None of that will ever be conveyed to the customer. Like, I don't even care if it's not even about using necessarily our name, though we would obviously love that, but like, it is such a huge missed opportunity. A lot like how uneducated taproom staff is a massive missed opportunity. I mean, it's one of my biggest pet peeves and I'm sure a lot of a lot of breweries get a lot of feedback around when, you ask questions, it's just like nobody knows anything. And so this gets to the point of like, I at least would love to help in that situation. I just honestly don't, I kind of try to respect the space and not get too pushy on stuff, but we're real good at talking about our stuff.
I think asking to talk to a marketing, if they've got a marketing person, I think saying, hey, is this something where you'd want to get the marketing person involved? Our brewers, our entire brewery team is great about that. They I think appreciate having that different perspective there, because they're focused on their product and they're focused on their process and what they're doing.
Right.
So we're kind of educating each other. So they're pushing me to learn more so that I can speak to it better. And then I'm pushing them to see it from a customer perspective and what's going to intrigue the customer. And you're speaking to internal marketing as well. I think the strongest marketing tool I think we have is our front of house staff. And I've been saying that since day one. And, so to come up with angles and really interesting aspects of a particular beer so that they can then relate it to their customers, that's important, but you have to inspire them because they're busy. They've got 33 beers that they're trying to, learn about. So that internal marketing, to me, that's one of the hardest things that we're really trying to push through. And that's actually our bigger struggle right now.
I think it is such a good practice right now, especially while all of us have to be mindful of social distancing. If your maltster is available, to go and check out the farm and be safe about it, of course, but to empower staff to go see it. And you really nailed it, Shelby. It's like they have so much to do. They have so much to talk about. Get them inspired about it and get it that authentic conversation going in it. It just goes so much further. As a person who's always been in beer marketing, I've long lived in the struggle between marketing and production, because there really is this concept of, well, we need to make this because it's trendy and because it's popular and it's easy to talk about, and we need to make this because it's fantastic and we really care about it and we care about the process. And sometimes those two lines don't ever meet, and so there's sometimes like big issues between your marketing and your production teams. And I think that there's a couple ways that I've found that really help just sort of tame that. And one of them is getting input from everyone in advance. I think if you can at least weigh in, then you can feel like you were a part of the process, even if you make a certain decision about an ingredient because of whatever reason, for example. I also think that just that education of your employees of like why we're doing this beer and why it relates to our brand. If you have a why behind it and you can communicate that to your staff, I think it's so much easier for them to get on board no matter what they do at your brewery or distillery. Yeah.
And it's certainly something we offer to do for you. I mean, I openly market my willingness to come and like do sensory analysis, do sensory experiences with taproom staff. I mean, Emily, I'm knowing Dan. I mean, I know for a fact that he is certainly willing to do that if he doesn't do it already, which I would bet he is. But I mean, it's one of those situations where y'all don't even have to do it if the willingness or the desire is there. I mean, we'll do it for you.
Right. We do that often, actually, where we've done, hot steep sessions with the front of house, or we've even had, some of our larger customers reach out and say, we want to get our entire team, the marketing, the brew house staff, the whoever it is, the bartenders, beer tenders, and they come up, and it's pretty interesting to see the difference between, our accounts that don't totally understand, I guess, where malt comes from as far as the front of house staff goes. So it's pretty useful tool to do those hot steeps, I think, with your beer tenders. And Dan loves it. He's out there often.
Totally, and I love it too. And I mean, brew. I mean, it's as far as I'm concerned, it's a service that's owed to you. So whether you're using a local maltster or, I mean, sales reps in general, like you should not feel the need, I don't think, to do this yourself. And let us do it for you, and you can have your time and then achieve your goal at the same time. Watching light bulbs go off it's crazy during those sessions.
Right.
I've had a lot of light bulbs during this session. Thanks, everyone. It's been good stuff. I'll close her down with a little toast to all of you. It's a weird time, but it's also a great time to focus on your communication strategy. And I think one of the most important pieces of advice I've ever gotten is to think about your content as your product. You guys all put so much care and love and value and time into your product. And if you look at your content the same way, it's going to be this organic outgrowth of who you are, and it's going to be authentic. And as a result, it doesn't have to be perfect. So it can just be you. So thank you for your time. Thank you for investing time into your content and into your social media. And my door is open always, and you're welcome to reach out to us for anything in future. Thanks and cheers. Go team.
Cheers.
Cheers. Everybody has a beer or a coffee or something. I love it.
Not a beer, I wish.
It's a well-branded, it looks like a well-branded beer. Awesome. Well, you guys have been thank you. You guys have been so great. Let me know if you need anything or you have any questions going forward.
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank
you, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.
Thanks, KB. Good comments. Austin, thanks for coming. Sorry we didn't really get to meet you.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited that I kind of saw this last minute and was like, that's what I'm doing on Friday.
I'm so happy that you joined us. It's always great to see your name come up on whatever the feed is. It's good to see you.
Oh gosh. Thanks, Emily.
I hope it was valuable. It's good to see you.
It absolutely was. It was great.
Thank you again. Cheers, friend. Love you, miss you. And Austin, thank you for coming. I'm gonna unmute you in case I can hear you. You're calling from, oh, we lost him. Oh, there you are. Hey, thanks for coming. You're from Historic, right?
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us. I know you came in a little late, so we're going to be providing this full Zoom recording with all the details in another email. And if you have any questions or there's anybody that you wanted to connect with later, I'm your girl.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us today. You look like you're in a busy production facility, so thanks for taking
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Well, that's old brewery back there.
Oh, it's beautiful. Very cool.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to connect with people. I was going to be presenting at the Beer Now conference in Austin in just a couple of weeks, and sadly it's canceled like everything else. But I'm sending all the good luck vibes to Austin. I wish I could.
Definitely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure to meet you. Have a good rest of your
Yeah,
Friday.
you too. All right, you too.